Kamala spent 100 days telling voters, I know it feels like crime and illegal immigration are bad, but fuck your feelings. Look at this chart. Have you seen my "In This House We Believe" lawn sign? See, it says right on it, we believe in science. Right, which is why you demanded no one even debate whether COVID could have escaped from the one lab in the one city where they were studying it. How far-fetched. You wear Queers for Palestine t-shirts and masks 2 years after the pandemic ended. And you can't define woman, I mean person who menstruates. You're the teachers' union education party, and you've turned schools and colleges into a joke.
So recently, we dropped a video exposing how Maher, yes, the same diehard lefty, absolutely shredded his own presidential pick, Kamala Harris. But what we didn't cover was the juicy backstory behind the whole circus. Well, lucky for you, that's exactly what we're diving into today. Why Bill Maher suddenly decided to torch someone he voted for, and brace yourself, throw some love Trump's way. Oh, and if you somehow haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and smash that button so you don't miss a single upload. Alright, enough teasing. Let's get into it.
First would be the first woman president, first black woman president, and first Asian president. But I don't vote for who will be the first. I vote for who will win. And for whatever reason, Harris has never been popular. You can count the number of delegates she won in the 2020 primaries on one hand, as long as that hand has no finger.
First and most painfully obvious reason Maher didn't vote for Kamala Harris. She was about as popular as a root canal, and not just with conservatives. Her own party wanted nothing to do with her. But did that stop her campaign team from trying to force feed her to the public like a bad TikTok trend? Nope. They wheeled out every celebrity they could find. Mindy Kaling, Meghan Markle, Lizzo, hoping their sheer star power would somehow make Kamala likable. They staged influencer collabs, awkward cooking segments, and even had her dancing on camera like that was the secret sauce to winning elections. Maher, in classic Maher fashion, saw right through it and quipped, yeah, because what voters really want is a VP with good TikTok moves. Now, some people insist Kamala Harris wasn't popular because she only had a few months to campaign, because apparently that's the only thing standing between her and overwhelming public adoration. Please. That excuse is as weak as her approval ratings. The truth? Even if Joe Biden himself had run, he would have face-planted just as hard because the Democrats' policies were about as appealing as a warm glass of expired milk. Take their relentless push for EV mandates, forcing Americans to ditch their gas-powered cars whether they wanted to or not. Turns out not everyone is thrilled about paying Tesla prices just to virtue signal at the stoplight. And let's not forget their soft-on-crime approach, where shoplifters waltzed out of stores like they were on supermarket sweep. Shockingly, voters weren't too keen on skyrocketing car prices and criminals getting a free pass. Who could have seen that coming? But that isn't the only reason Maher didn't vote for Kamala. Another reason he cited for going against his own party is her incompetence.
In 3 years as vice president, she's been quieter than an electric car. Sometimes life isn't fair. It's not fair that she's not popular. She's intelligent and accomplished, and in fact was put in charge of the border. And look at how... Okay, bad example.
Aside from being spectacularly unpopular, Kamala Harris was also, according to Bill Maher, shockingly incompetent. And honestly, who could argue? She was handed one of the biggest responsibilities of the administration, the border crisis, and well, we all saw how that turned out. Instead of tackling the issue head on, she treated it like an annoying group project and barely showed up. When she did finally visit the border after months of pressure, it felt more like a PR stunt than actual leadership. Her grand strategy? Vague speeches about root causes and half-hearted diplomatic visits where she told migrants, do not come. Now, if you doubt Maher's critique, watch this clip.
What I was asking was it a mistake to kind of allow that flood to happen in the first place?
I think the policies that we have been proposing are about fixing a problem, not promoting a problem.
Meanwhile, illegal crossings exploded, cities were completely overwhelmed, and the rest of us were left scratching our heads, wondering if our so-called border czar even knew where the border was. Every time she was pressed on the issue, she delivered one incoherent word salad after another. So much filler, so little substance. It was like watching a student try to hit a word count on an essay they didn't study for. The border crisis wasn't just a policy failure, it was a test, a preview of what America could expect if Kamala ever got full control of the country. And let's just say, she didn't exactly pass with flying colors. Instead of fixing the problem, she treated it like an annoying inconvenience, dodging responsibility and hoping no one would notice. But people did notice, including Bill Maher, who, despite being a liberal, couldn't ignore the absolute mess she left behind. The third reason Maher took Kamala Harris to the cleaners was her dishonesty. Watch how this CNN journalist picks Kamala's lies apart.
Donald Trump, you criticized the wall more than 50 times. You called it stupid, useless, and a medieval vanity project. Is a border wall stupid?
Well, let's talk about Donald Trump and that border wall. So remember, Donald Trump said Mexico would pay for it? Come on, they didn't. How much of that wall did he build? I think the last number I saw is about 2%.
To fix the problem, you're doing this compromise bill. It does call for $650 million that was earmarked under Trump to actually still go to build the wall.
I'm not afraid of good ideas where they occurred.
So you don't think it's stupid anymore?
I think what he did and how he did it did not make much sense because he actually didn't do much of anything. We just talked about it. He didn't actually do much of anything.
But you do want to build some wall.
Kamala Harris was loudly against Trump's border wall, until suddenly she wasn't. During her 2019 campaign, she dismissed it as a medieval vanity project and a pointless waste of taxpayer money. She even voted against funding it in the Senate, making her stance crystal clear. But fast forward to 2023, and guess what? The Biden administration quietly approved new border wall construction in Texas because, shocker, the border crisis wasn't fixing itself. And when confronted about this blatant flip-flop, Harris did what she does best: deflect and deny. Enter Anderson Cooper, who actually pressed her on it during an interview. When he pointed out that the administration was literally building more wall, Harris boldly claimed, "No, we're not." Cooper, probably suppressing an eye roll, had to remind her that the Department of Homeland Security had already confirmed the project. The moment was peak Harris caught in a lie, dodging reality, and hoping nobody noticed. But Maher and many Americans were eagle-eyed. The fourth reason why Maher chose to mercilessly roast his own presidential candidate was the stale policy.
Queers for Palestine t-shirts and masks 2 years after the pandemic ended. And you can't define woman, person who menstruates. You're the teachers' union education party, and you've turned schools and colleges into a joke. What a shocker that the people who see everything through the lens of race and sex see their election loss as a result of racism and sexism. Kamala spent 100 days telling voters, I know it feels like crime and illegal immigration are bad, but fuck your feelings. Look at this chart. Have you seen my "In this house we believe" lawn sign? See, it says right on it, we believe in science. Right, which is why you demanded no one even debate whether COVID could have escaped from the one lab in the one city where they were studying it. How far-fetched! Democrats have become like a royal family that, because of so much incest, has unfortunately had children who are retarded.
Left rolled out some of the most mind-numbingly absurd policies, so absurd that even die-hard liberals like Bill Maher had to take a step back and say, wait, what? It was like a competition to see who could push the most ridiculous idea and still keep a straight face. Take the whole biological men dominating women's sports situation. Suddenly, decades of progress for female athletes meant nothing because feelings trumped fairness. Women trained their whole lives for a shot at victory, only to lose to someone with an unfair biological advantage. And if you dared to call it out, you're labeled a bigot. Then there was the hilarious contradiction of LGBTQ activists parading around in Queers for Palestine shirts, supporting a group that, spoiler alert, doesn't support them back. Nothing screams progressive enlightenment like championing a cause that would literally outlaw your existence. Maher, ever the realist, couldn't ignore the irony. The final reason why Maher torched Kamala was her incomprehensible word salad. Whenever Kamala was cornered, she threw in a word salad. Take a look at this.
I think it's very important, as you have heard from so many incredible leaders, for us at every moment in time, and certainly this one, to see the moment in time in which we exist and are present, and to be able to contextualize it, to understand where we exist in the history and in the moment as it relates not only to the past but the future.
The final reason Maher absolutely roasted Kamala Harris. Her trademark word, salad. Anytime she was cornered, whether on policy, leadership, or basic geography, she'd start stringing words together like a malfunctioning AI bot. It was the verbal equivalent of shaking a Magic 8 ball and hoping for a coherent answer. Just imagine Kamala as president, standing on the world stage, delivering a crucial speech, and nobody understanding a word of it. Diplomats would be glancing at each other, confused, while our allies wondered if they'd missed a translation. Meanwhile, our enemies? Oh, they'd love it. Nothing screams strong leadership like a commander-in-chief whose sentences sound like a kindergarten story time gone wrong. Maher, like the rest of us, saw the disaster potential in real time. If she couldn't form a coherent thought under mild pressure, how would she handle an actual crisis? Answer, she wouldn't. She'd just word salad her way through it. At some point, even her own staff had to be playing a game of Kamala Bingo, marking off every time she repeated a phrase. Meanwhile, world leaders like Putin and Xi Jinping would be sitting back, laughing their heads off, knowing America's leadership had turned into a bad comedy sketch.
Kamala Harris run for California governor in 2026 after polls show her leading. I'm going to give that a big no.
She's had her chance several times.
She should run far, far away.
Yeah, I think Kamala Harris would make a great president of the universe.
Sadly for Kamala Harris, even Bill Maher doesn't think she's fit to run for anything, not even governor of California, a state where Democrats practically run unopposed. And Maher didn't just question her chances, he torched them. He ripped her rumored ambitions to shreds, making it clear that if she couldn't handle being VP, where her biggest job was basically showing up, then governing the nation's most dysfunctional state was way out of her league. Let's face it, California is already a disaster zone with skyrocketing crime, rampant homelessness, and businesses fleeing faster than Kamala dodges tough questions. Does anyone really think she would fix it? More likely she'd respond to every crisis with another word salad while the state burned around her. Maher, a lifelong Californian, knows the state needs help, not another politician who talks in circles while accomplishing nothing. Even he wasn't buying what Kamala was selling. Another person who also hilariously tore into Kamala Harris was comedian and actor Rob Schneider. According to him, nobody voted for Harris during the primaries. She was just given the nod. Take a look.
No, it's that nobody voted for Kamala. They just said, okay, you're it. They did this in 2016. Bernie Sanders, he was the guy that got all the votes in the primary. Like, we just give it to Hillary. In 2020, just everybody drop out, just give it to Biden. Then this year, it's like, everybody figured it out. His brain doesn't work. Let's just get Kamala. Here's what you have. You have somebody that nobody voted for, and you got somebody they tried to murder 2 times. I don't know which one's probably going to hold up democracy.
True. Nobody actually voted for Kamala Harris. She didn't rise to power because of overwhelming public support. She was handpicked by the Democratic establishment, who somehow convinced themselves she was the future of the party. Rob Schneider put it best when he said she was completely unfit to run a democracy because, let's be honest, she can barely string a coherent sentence together, let alone lead a nation. Meanwhile, on the other side, you have Donald Trump, the actual choice of millions of voters. Not only did he dominate the primaries, but he also survived 2 assassination attempts, proving that he's literally battle-tested. While Kamala was fumbling through interviews and delivering speeches that sounded like a high school group project gone wrong, Trump was out there, rallying crowds and showing why he remains the most formidable political force in America. The contrast couldn't be clearer.
She's better. No, let me tell you, Kamala, she does different accents. Depending on where she is, down south. Let me tell you something. You boys better get it together here and vote. Save democracy. Black community, she's like, shit, let me tell you something, honey. Let me tell you right now, we ain't vote for Trump, I even saw her at a 7-Eleven going like, listen, it's very important that we vote for the Democrats. We're trying to save democracy here. We're trying to save democracy. For sure, you don't understand. You need to vote. You need to vote.
Rob Schneider doesn't just think Kamala Harris is unqualified to lead a democracy. He thinks she's too fake to be taken seriously as a leader. And honestly, he's got a point. One of his biggest criticisms? Her ever-changing accents, which seemed to shift depending on who she was talking to. During her previous campaign, she pulled out a southern twang 1 minute, a forced urban dialect the next, and even threw in some awkward pandering for good measure. It was like watching a bad impressionist try and fail to connect with different audiences. Schneider roasted her for this chameleon act, pointing out that authenticity actually matters in leadership. Voters can smell phoniness from a mile away, and Kamala reeked of it. When Trump speaks, whether you love him or hate him, you know it's him. But with Kamala, you never knew which version of her you were getting, except that none of them were real. It's no wonder her approval ratings tanked. Americans don't want a politician who changes personalities like outfits. If she couldn't even stick to one authentic voice, how could anyone trust her to lead the country? Just like Bill Maher, Rob Schneider didn't hold back in calling out the Democrats for their spectacular loss because, according to him, they didn't just lose on policy, they lost on lies. And not just small lies, massive, insulting, reality-bending whoppers. They lied about Biden's mental health, insisting he was sharp as ever while he struggled to finish sentences. They lied about men having babies, pushing woke biology like it was settled science. They lied about the economy, gaslighting Americans into believing things were going great while grocery prices soared and people could barely afford rent. Schneider, like Maher, saw through the nonsense. The Democrats thought they could talk their way out of failure, but reality caught up with them. Turns out, when you spend years gaslighting the public, eventually, the public stops listening. And in 2024, they finally did. Schneider joked that at this point, the Democrats could tell people the sky is green, and their media allies would nod along like it was a groundbreaking discovery. But as it turns out, voters prefer actual reality over make-believe, and that's why the Democrats got a brutal wake-up call.
Going back to where they tried to kill him. That's right. Well, hopefully they'll have better security this time. You know, the Secret Service, they knew about the guy 52 minutes beforehand. They have not released the audio from the body cam, and I don't think they ever will. But if they do, I bet it would sound something like this. You see that up there? What? Up there! He's got a gun! What do you think he wants? I don't know, it's not duck season. Hey, be careful! Don't aim over here. There's going to be people over here. The president's going to be right here in 52 minutes.
Now, this might sound like a joke, but there's a lot of truth to what Schneider is saying. For years, the Democrats have pushed one of the most absurd narratives in modern politics, that Donald Trump is somehow the second coming of Hitler. Yes, they actually expected ordinary Americans to believe that a guy who spent decades as a celebrity, cracked jokes on The Apprentice, and was literally given awards by civil rights groups was the biggest threat to democracy since World War II. They didn't just suggest it, they hammered it into people's heads non-stop. Hollywood elites, late-night hosts, and even so-called journalists all fell in line, repeating the same fear-mongering script. But here's the problem. After years of crying fascist over everything, people stopped taking them seriously. When you compare enforcing immigration laws to literal genocide, you lose credibility fast. Schneider pointed out that if Trump were really the dictator they claimed, half of Hollywood wouldn't still have careers after trashing him for 8 years. This is the reason why people with common sense like Schneider, because the dude says it as it is, even when he's correcting misinformed people.
The woman that you're supporting, Kamala Harris, and her running mate, Walls paper. They said that the free speech, they describe it as a privilege. Now, this is either they're constitutionally ignorant or they're knowingly false, because it is a guaranteed First Amendment right for all Americans. It is not a privilege like a driver's license. When you are born in America, you have the right to speak your mind, and it isn't the nice stuff that needs protecting. It's the stuff that everybody disagrees with. It's the stuff that maybe is not nice, but that needs to be protecting too, because if someone's going to decide what free speech that you say and what I say, if it's going to be the government, they're always going to do what's best for the government. So we need to protect all speech, and I'm going to protect your right to free speech. I'm going to protect your right to vote any way that you want from the highest mountain. Always. I will do that.
Rob Schneider didn't just debate, he schooled this Harris supporter on the actual meaning of free speech. Because, according to the left, free speech had somehow morphed from a fundamental right into a privilege. One that only applied if you parroted their talking points. Say something they didn't like? Canceled. Question their narrative? Misinformation. And let's not forget the legendary Twitter war that exposed all of it. You do remember, right? The one where left-wing elites panicked the moment they realized they couldn't control the narrative anymore. Their censorship empire was crumbling, and in walked Elon Musk, buying the whole platform just to restore free speech. The meltdown that followed was glorious. Rob, like many Americans, saw it as proof that the left didn't want debate. They wanted control, and when they lost it, they lost their mind.
Happened in L.A. The chief of the fire department, she put this out on her website for the LA Fire Department. A gay man, asked her, would you be able to carry my husband out in case of a fire? And she said, well, if I have to carry your husband out, he got himself in a bad spot. See, that's precisely the point why he needs to get rescued. You don't want a fireman coming over going, yeah, fire department's here. All right, hope you're not in a bad spot. You're dead. I want a big, bulky 6'8" Austrian or Polish dude to come kick the door down, see me crying in the corner. Come on, we gotta get out! Come on! He picks me up, I'm naked and half hard, he says to me, I'll jerk you off when we get out there, you're safe now!
What's not to love about Rob Schneider and Bill Maher? These two actually say it like it is. No sugarcoating, no tiptoeing around delicate feelings, just straight up truth bombs. In an era where politicians and media elites twist themselves into knots to avoid offending anyone, Rob and Maher cut through the nonsense like a hot knife through butter. Schneider calls out hypocrisy with brutal honesty, whether it's the left's obsession with censorship or their bizarre flip-flopping on basic reality. Maher, despite being a longtime liberal, isn't afraid to torch his own side when they go off the deep end because, let's be real, they have. Together, they represent something rare in Hollywood and politics. People who aren't afraid to think for themselves. And in a world drowning in scripted narratives, that kind of authenticity is refreshing. Rob Schneider and Bill Maher prove that honesty still matters. They've called out the left's hypocrisy, from Kamala's incompetence to the Democrats' endless lies. Whether it's free speech, fake narratives, or failed policies, they aren't afraid to speak the truth. And in today's world, that's exactly what we need. Which brings us to the end of today's video. If you enjoyed it, then hit the like button and subscribe to this channel for more of these videos. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.